Expecting death from the human, she was given pleasure instead. The humans were waiting. She could see them moving about in the open courtyard below, their postures relaxed but alert. She had heard many stories of humans, how dangerous they could be, how unpredictable. Every cell in her body expected treachery. Every instinct whispered that she would face death within hours of her arrival. She adjusted the strap of her ceremonial armor, the one piece she allowed herself to wear outside of diplomatic chambers. It gleamed under the twin suns of this world, a symbol of her rank and her people's strict hierarchy. But Selira had been trained to anticipate death even in the presence of such protection. Her people, the Alarians, were strong, precise, and often ruthless. They expected the same from others. That was why this mission made her uneasy. She had been sent to assess the humans, to determine if they were a threat to the greater Alarian territories. The reports were inconsistent. Some praised human ingenuity, others warned of their dangerous unpredictability. A figure emerged from the human outpost, a tall man with calm shoulders, straight posture, and a face that seemed almost ordinary. But his eyes, a deep blue, held a quiet confidence, the kind that could calm storms and ignite courage at the same time. This was Captain Marcus, the human officer assigned to meet her. "Welcome, Lady Selira," he said, his voice even and warm. There was no hesitation, no hint of fear. "We are honored by your presence. Please follow me. I hope your journey was comfortable." Selira's instincts screamed caution, yet there was something in the man's tone, in the way he held himself, that unsettled her expectations. She had come prepared to face weapons, traps, and hostility. Instead, she found a genuine offer of hospitality. "I trust your people know the purpose of my mission," she replied, her voice steady but tinged with suspicion. "I am here to observe and report. Any act of aggression will be met accordingly." Marcus gave a small nod, his expression unshaken. "Of course, but aggression is not required for understanding. We prefer communication and exchange first." Selira blinked. The words were simple, yet they carried a meaning her people rarely entertained. Aggression was a natural response in Alarian diplomacy. Power was respected, fear ensured compliance, and trust was rarely given freely. Pleasure, comfort, and open communication. These were not tools she expected from humans. Yet here they were, offered to her without hesitation. As she followed Marcus through the human settlement, she observed everything. The buildings were low but sturdy, with clean lines and materials that seemed familiar but alien in their simplicity. Humans moved freely, carrying out daily tasks, conversing and laughing. No one seemed to notice the Alarian visitor with her imposing presence, yet their eyes occasionally flicked toward her with curiosity rather than fear. Marcus led her to a large chamber at the center of the outpost. Inside, soft light bathed the room. Delicate human music played from invisible sources, a gentle, soothing rhythm that resonated deep in Selira's chest. There were tables laid with items she could not immediately identify. Some seemed edible, others emitted gentle light, and a few produced small waves of vibration when touched. "You may find our customs unusual," Marcus said. "We believe in offering comfort and pleasure as a way to build understanding. It may feel unfamiliar, but it is meant to ease the mind and body." Selira hesitated, her instincts on high alert. The idea of pleasure in the human sense was strange to her. To the Alarians, pleasure was often secondary, a distraction from duty. Yet as she looked around, she could not deny the effect the environment had on her senses. The music, the scents, the tactile sensations. It was disorienting but not threatening. There was a calmness she had not expected. Marcus guided her to a seat, a soft chair that seemed to mold perfectly to her form. "Please relax. Let us share some food and conversation. There is much to learn from each other." Reluctantly, Selira sat. Marcus brought forth small dishes, each containing a different item. Some were sweet, others savory. There was a warmth and richness that surprised her taste buds. She took a small bite of a glowing fruit, and the flavor exploded gently, sweet and tangy in a way she had never experienced. Her eyes widened. "You will find humans express care through such offerings," Marcus explained. "We call it nourishment of both body and mind. It is a way to show respect and foster trust." Selira could hardly process the sensation. She had expected hostility, perhaps even an attempt on her life. Instead, she was experiencing pleasure, calm, subtle, and deeply affecting. The thought unnerved her. How could humans, beings she was told to fear, use pleasure as a form of diplomacy? Was this a trick, a clever weapon in disguise? Marcus smiled gently at her observation. "I assure you it is neither trick nor weapon. It is our way." For hours they conversed. Marcus spoke of human history, their values, and their approach to challenges. He explained how humans find joy in cooperation, in creativity, and in understanding one another. Selira listened, her mind struggling to reconcile these ideas with everything she had been taught. Humans were not simple, nor were they weak. They were unpredictable, yes, but not because of violence. They were unpredictable because of their ingenuity, their resilience, and their capacity for empathy and connection. At one point, Selira excused herself to the observation balcony. She gazed at the distant horizon, at the tiny figures moving through the outpost, and felt a disquieting emotion. Fear, yes, but also curiosity, fascination, and something she could not yet name. The humans were not what she expected. Marcus joined her silently. "You do not need to decide anything tonight," he said softly. "Just observe, experience, and know that not all who are different intend harm." Selira nodded, though her heart still raced. She had been trained for battle, for negotiation under threat, and for survival in hostile situations. Yet this human, this calm, unassuming officer, offered her something entirely different: safety, understanding, and the strange, intoxicating concept of pleasure without consequence. The twin suns dipped lower on the horizon, casting long shadows across the human outpost. Selira felt a tension within her start to ease, a small but undeniable warmth spreading through her chest. Perhaps humans were not the simple killers her people had warned her about. Perhaps they were something else entirely. And yet she reminded herself she could not let her guard down completely. This was still a mission, and her duty was clear. She would observe, report, and survive. But for the first time in her life, she realized that surviving might not require conflict. It might instead require understanding, and a willingness to experience something she had never allowed herself to feel before: unexpected pleasure. As night fell, the outpost lit up with soft, glowing lights. Humans continued their work, their laughter and chatter blending with the music that filled the air. Selira remained on the balcony, watching, listening, and feeling the shift inside her. The humans had not attacked. They had not tried to deceive her. Instead, they had given her something she had never imagined she could receive from another being. She did not yet understand it fully. She only knew that what she had expected, death, had not come. Instead, she had been given something else entirely: a taste of human life, a moment of genuine pleasure, and a glimpse of a strength far greater than she had ever anticipated. And that realization, she knew, would change everything. The next morning, Lady Selira woke to the soft hum of the human outpost. Light filtered through the transparent walls of her quarters, warm and golden. She had slept well, though not entirely comfortably, her mind still alive with the sensations of the previous day. The taste of the glowing fruit, the gentle music, and the calm assurance of Captain Marcus lingered like a strange perfume she could not shake. She rose, adjusting her ceremonial armor even though no battle awaited her. It was a habit, a way to remind herself of who she was and the discipline she carried. But as she stepped into the corridor, she noticed something she had not expected. The humans moved with ease, unafraid, and yet focused on their tasks. There was no hint of panic, no sense of tension. It was as if the world could be dangerous, but they chose to meet it with calm and joy. Marcus was waiting for her at the end of the hall, a simple smile on his face. "Good morning, Lady Selira," he said. "I hope your rest was sufficient. Today I thought we might explore some of our daily routines. It will help you understand our ways better." Selira nodded, still cautious. "I observe, I learn, but I remain vigilant." Marcus chuckled softly. "Of course, vigilance is wise. But vigilance need not prevent enjoyment." They walked through the outpost together. Humans were everywhere, engaged in their daily activities. Some were tending small gardens that grew lush, colorful plants. Others were repairing equipment, their movements precise and fluid. Children laughed in open spaces, their voices clear and melodic, running in games that seemed both chaotic and purposeful. Selira's eyes followed everything. Her mind cataloged details, the way humans coordinated tasks without strict commands, the subtle glances that conveyed meaning, the unspoken rules that kept the society orderly yet flexible. There was efficiency here, yes, but it was balanced by something foreign to her: care, connection, and joy. Marcus stopped near a group of humans working on a small mechanical device. "Would you like to try?" he asked, handing her a tool. Selira hesitated. She had expected to handle weapons or defensive technology, not a delicate human machine. The device was intricate, its components tiny but precise. She adjusted her grip, feeling the human tool in her hands. It responded easily, intuitively, as if it had been made for her fingers. With Marcus guiding her, she worked slowly, assembling part of the device. At first, she felt awkward, unsure, and tense. But as the mechanism took shape under her hands, she felt a quiet thrill, a sense of accomplishment that had nothing to do with combat or rank. The humans around her smiled encouragingly, their joy genuine and infectious. "Humans take pleasure in creation," Marcus explained. "It is not always about necessity or survival. Sometimes it is about expressing oneself, learning, or simply enjoying the process." Selira considered this. In a Larian society, creation was often a means to an end: tools, weapons, or structures designed for efficiency. But here, the act itself brought satisfaction, even happiness. She felt her chest tighten with a new and unfamiliar emotion, admiration mixed with wonder. Later, Marcus led her to a quiet courtyard where a human group had gathered. They were performing a ritual she could not yet name. Hands moved in patterns, voices sang in harmonies, and small instruments added soft melodies. Selira watched, captivated. She did not understand the meaning of all the gestures or songs, yet she felt their purpose clearly: to celebrate, to connect, to find joy together. "You see," Marcus said quietly, standing beside her, "humans create moments of pleasure not because they are required to, but because they value the experience. Life is precious, and we seek to honor it." Selira remained silent, her thoughts heavy. Her people valued power, control, and survival above all else. Fear ensured compliance, strength demanded respect. But humans sought to delight, to find connection and joy even in small moments. It was not weakness. If anything, it required courage, to embrace life fully without certainty of outcome. As the day progressed, Selira experienced more of what Marcus called human pleasures. They shared meals prepared with care, foods she had never tasted, each with unique flavors, textures, and temperatures. She listened to stories of human adventures, of moments when individuals faced fear or danger but found hope, courage, and sometimes laughter in the outcome. Selira began to understand the paradox. Humans could be dangerous, yes, but their danger was not born of malice or cruelty alone. It came from unpredictability, creativity, and the capacity to rise in ways that defied expectation. And yet, for every demonstration of strength, there was a moment of gentleness, a smile, a gesture of care that balanced it perfectly. In the late afternoon, Marcus invited her to a small pond in the center of the outpost. Water rippled gently, reflecting the golden sunlight. Humans were seated around it, some meditating, others simply observing the reflections. "Observe how we spend our quiet moments," Marcus said. "Even when there is no immediate task, we find ways to nourish the mind and spirit. Pleasure is not indulgence, it is a way to maintain strength, clarity, and balance." Selira knelt by the pond, watching the water shimmer. She felt a calm she had never known, a quiet settling of tension in her muscles and mind. Here she was not a warrior, a diplomat, or a spy. She was simply present, experiencing the world through human eyes. "I do not understand it fully," she admitted softly. "Humans are perplexing. I expected aggression, deceit, hostility. Instead, I find pleasure, cooperation, and care." Marcus nodded. "We are not perfect. We have flaws, as do all species. But we choose, whenever possible, to seek understanding, joy, and connection. It is a strength many overlook." As the sun dipped low, casting long shadows across the courtyard, a human child approached Selira. The child offered a small flower, its petals vibrant and delicate. Selira looked down at it, startled. Her instincts told her to push it away, to be wary. Yet the child's eyes were open, curious, and unafraid. She accepted the flower, a small but profound act. She realized then that this was part of the pleasure Marcus had described, not something physical or indulgent, but a deep, emotional satisfaction in trust and connection. She felt a warmth spread through her chest, a sense of wonder at the simple generosity of the gesture. Marcus smiled. Humans show care in many ways. Sometimes it is grand, sometimes it is simple, but always it is genuine. Selira's mind whirled. She had expected fear, confrontation, and perhaps death. Instead, she was learning something that challenged everything she had been taught, that pleasure, kindness, and understanding were not weaknesses, but sources of power and resilience. The evening concluded with a quiet meal in Marcus's quarters. The conversation flowed easily, a mixture of stories, observations, and shared laughter. Selira felt herself relaxing in a way she had never done with another being. Her guard, though still present, was no longer rigid. She could feel the beginnings of trust forming, fragile but undeniable. As night fell and the twin moons rose over the outpost, Selira found herself alone on the balcony once more. She gazed at the stars, feeling a strange mix of exhilaration and unease. The humans had not attacked, they had not deceived her. They had offered her something entirely new, a glimpse of life through eyes unclouded by fear, ambition, or rigid hierarchy. And yet the lesson was not complete. She understood that this human approach, the focus on pleasure, trust, and connection, was powerful, perhaps more so than she could yet grasp. It was a power that could inspire, unite, and even protect in ways her people often dismissed. Her thoughts returned to Marcus, the calm officer who had guided her through this unfamiliar world. He had not commanded her, threatened her, or tried to dominate her. Instead, he had shared knowledge, experience, and the quiet joy of human life. It was a strange form of strength, one that demanded both courage and humility to embrace. Selira wondered what her superiors would think if she reported this truth. They expected danger, hostility, and perhaps even bloodshed. Reporting pleasure, understanding, and admiration might be seen as weakness or foolishness. Yet she could not deny what she had experienced. Humans were not merely to be feared, they were to be understood, respected, and in some way admired. As she retired for the night, Selira felt a quiet determination forming within her. She would continue to observe, continue to learn, and continue to experience. The human way of life, strange and paradoxical as it was, had begun to alter her perception of the universe. And though she did not yet know how it would end, one thing was certain. The humans had given her something far more valuable than she had expected. They had given her a new way of seeing, a new way of understanding, and a new kind of pleasure that went beyond fear or survival. Tomorrow would bring more lessons, more experiences, and perhaps more surprises. And Selira, once certain of danger and death, now found herself anticipating the unknown, not with dread but with a cautious, thrilling curiosity. For the first time, she realized that perhaps the greatest strength of the humans was not in their weapons, their numbers, or their speed. It was in their capacity to create pleasure, to inspire connection, and to turn expectation of fear into a moment of wonder. And that, Selira thought as she watched the moons rise, was a lesson worth every risk. Lady Selira had begun to notice the change before she was ready to admit it. It was not something dramatic or sudden. It did not arrive with alarms or sharp realizations. Instead, it came quietly, settling into her thoughts like morning light through a window. She no longer woke expecting danger. She woke expecting curiosity. On the third day at the human outpost, she found herself standing in the central corridor long before her escort arrived. Humans passed by, greeting her with nods or small smiles. Some paused to ask if she required anything. None treated her like a prisoner or a threat. To her surprise, none treated her like royalty either. They treated her like a guest. That unsettled her more than open hostility ever could. Her people believed power defined worth. Rank shaped every interaction. Yet here, humans spoke to her with the same tone they used with each other. Respectful, calm, and honest. It was a strange equality that made her feel exposed, as if the armor she wore protected her body but not her sense of self. Captain Marcus eventually appeared, carrying a small device in his hand. "You are awake early," he said. "I thought today we could show you how we handle pressure when things do not go as planned." Selira tilted her head slightly. "Pressure is constant," she replied. "One prepares for it or is destroyed by it." Marcus smiled, not disagreeing. "True, but humans prepare differently." They traveled beyond the main living area to the outer maintenance fields. The land around the outpost was rough, shaped by wind and time. Large machines rested near energy towers, some active, others under repair. Selira immediately noticed tension in the air. Humans moved faster here. Voices were focused. Something was wrong. One of the engineers approached Marcus. "We detected instability in the eastern power relay. If it collapses, we lose shields for the lower sector." Marcus nodded calmly. "How long?" 2 hours, maybe less." Selira's muscles tightened. This was what she understood: risk, failure, consequences. She waited for orders, for raised voices, for panic. None came. Instead, Marcus gathered the team. He spoke clearly, assigning tasks, asking for input, listening carefully. There was urgency but no fear. Each human moved with purpose, trusting the others to do their part. Selira observed closely. There was no rigid hierarchy here. Leadership shifted naturally as expertise demanded. When one human struggled, another stepped in without blame. When a mistake was made, it was corrected without anger. "This is inefficient," Selira said at first, watching them pause to exchange ideas. Marcus glanced at her. "It may look that way, but efficiency without trust breaks under pressure. Trust keeps us flexible." She did not reply, but she watched. When the relay began to destabilize faster than expected, the humans adapted immediately. Marcus changed the plan without hesitation. No one resisted. No one argued for pride. They simply adjusted. Selira felt something tighten in her chest. This was not weakness. This was strength built on cooperation rather than fear. Without being asked, she stepped forward. "I can reinforce the outer casing," she said. "My armor can withstand the energy surge." Marcus studied her for a moment, then nodded. "Thank you. We will guide you." Working together, human and alien stabilized the relay just before failure. When the system finally settled, a quiet cheer spread across the team. Some laughed. One human leaned against the equipment and closed his eyes in relief. No one celebrated dominance. They celebrated survival together. Later, as they walked back toward the outpost, Selira realized her hands were still shaking, not from fear but from something else. Excitement, fulfillment. She had felt useful without being ordered, trusted without being tested. This is also pleasure, Marcus said, as if reading her thoughts. Solving problems together, facing danger without letting it consume us. Selira considered that. Among her people, danger was met with discipline and silence. Survival was expected, not celebrated. Failure was punished. Here, success was shared. That night, Selira dreamed. She dreamed of her homeworld, of the cold halls and towering structures. She walked them unarmed. Rank symbols faded from her armor. Around her, Ilarians stood not in rigid lines but in circles, speaking freely. She woke unsettled, her heart racing. The next days brought more experiences. Marcus introduced her to human storytelling. Groups gathered in the evenings, sharing tales of loss, courage, mistakes, and hope. Humans spoke openly of fear and failure, not as shame but as lessons. Selira listened, transfixed. A warrior admitting fear was unheard of in her culture. Here it was normal. And yet these humans were not weak. They had survived disasters, wars, and impossible odds. "How can you admit such things and still stand strong?" she asked Marcus afterward. He answered simply, "Because hiding fear does not remove it. Understanding it gives us control." That answer stayed with her. On the sixth day, a message arrived from Ilarian space. Her superiors requested a status report. The sight of the sealed communication tablet made Selira's pulse quicken. This was the moment she had prepared for all her life. She did not open it immediately. Instead, she walked to the observation deck overlooking the outpost. Humans moved below, living their lives without awareness of the weight pressing on her chest. Children laughed. Engineers worked. Medics trained. She realized something that frightened her more than any weapon. If her people decided humans were a threat, these lives would be marked for destruction. Not because of violence, but because of misunderstanding. Marcus joined her quietly. "You received a message." "Yes," she said, "they expect confirmation of danger." "And what will you tell them?" Selira was silent for a long moment. "The truth," she said finally, "but I fear they will not understand it." Marcus nodded. "Then say it anyway. Truth has its own strength." That night, Selira reviewed everything she had seen. The pleasure she experienced was not indulgence. It was clarity. Humans used joy, trust, and connection as tools to stay resilient. Where her people ruled through control, humans survived through balance. She recorded her report carefully. She spoke of human adaptability, cooperation, and emotional intelligence. She described pleasure not as weakness but as reinforcement, a force that kept morale strong, minds sharp, and bonds unbreakable. She did not soften the truth. Humans could be dangerous, she admitted, but not because they sought destruction. They were dangerous because they could unite, endure, and inspire in ways that shattered expectations. When she sent the report, she felt both relief and fear. The response came the next day. It was brief. "Continue observation, maintain position, no praise, no condemnation." Selira exhaled slowly. It was not rejection, it was uncertainty. That evening, another alert sounded. A distant alien faction entered the system, aggressive and uncommunicative. Defense protocols activated. Humans moved swiftly, calmly. Selira watched Marcus prepare. No anger, no hatred, only focus. "You still expect death from us?" Marcus asked quietly. She looked at him, truly looked at him. "No," she said, "I expect resolve." The encounter never became a battle. Through coordinated defense and communication, the threat withdrew. Not because of overwhelming force, but because the humans showed they were not easy prey. Afterward, there was no boasting, no celebration of dominance, only relief. Selira felt something settle inside her. She understood now. Humans did not replace fear with pleasure. They transformed it. They used pleasure to strengthen themselves so fear could not rule them. As she stood among them, no longer a distant observer but a participant, Selira knew her mission had already changed her forever. She had come expecting death. Instead, she had found meaning. And the most dangerous thing about humans was not their weapons. It was their ability to turn fear into trust, tension into cooperation, and survival into something worth protecting. The morning air was crisp, carrying a faint scent of flowers from the human gardens. Lady Selira stepped out onto the observation platform, her eyes tracing the human outpost below. Life moved as it always did. Humans tending gardens, repairing machinery, children laughing, and elders sharing quiet conversation. Yet today, there was a sense of anticipation in the air, subtle but unmistakable, as if something was about to shift. Captain Marcus met her at the edge of the platform. His calm blue eyes held a quiet energy that mirrored the anticipation she sensed. "Good morning, Lady Selira," he said. "Today we'll show you a different side of human capability, how we face challenges together, and why our way of life builds strength beyond the obvious." Selira's hand instinctively touched the edge of her ceremonial armor, but her mind was no longer dominated by the expectation of attack. She had learned to recognize human strength in ways her people could never understand, through collaboration, joy, and resilience. Today, she would witness it firsthand. They walked together through the outpost, past the bustling work areas and toward the central courtyard. Selira noted the seamless coordination among humans. There were no rigid commands, no enforced hierarchy in motion, just individuals working in harmony, guided by intuition, shared experience, and mutual respect. It was astonishing to her disciplined mind. Suddenly, an alert blared from the outpost's monitoring systems. A distant signal indicated a natural disaster approaching, a violent storm with winds capable of damaging structures and machinery. Human crews immediately mobilized, but unlike Ilarians, they did not panic. There was no fear-driven scramble, only organized, purposeful action. Marcus turned to Selira. "Watch closely. Humans do not rely solely on force or dominance to meet threats. We use coordination, trust, and calm to overcome them." Selira nodded. Her eyes widened as she saw humans working in teams, each member anticipating the next move of another. Mechanical devices were moved, protective barriers erected, and emergency procedures carried out, all with precision and efficiency, yet with an underlying grace that she had not thought possible. She felt something stirring within her, an emotion she could not easily define. It was admiration, yes, but also awe at the human capacity to remain calm, to support one another, and to find joy in the midst of challenge. Unlike her people, who often relied on fear and intimidation, humans thrived on connection and cooperation. Marcus approached her. "Would you like to assist?" he asked. Selira hesitated. Her training had always been in combat, strategy, and observation, not collaboration with beings so fundamentally different from her own kind. But something in Marcus's eyes, trust, calm, and encouragement, pushed her forward. She moved with purpose, following instructions without hesitation. Humans guided her to reinforce structural supports, work with machinery, and coordinate with teams she barely understood. At first, she struggled to keep pace, but as the storm drew closer, she noticed something remarkable. She began to anticipate the humans' actions intuitively. Their movement, their timing, their method of communicating without words, it became almost second nature. The storm arrived with a roaring force, wind lashing against the outpost, rain pelting the protective barriers. Yet humans faced it with unshakable focus. Selira found herself working alongside them, contributing in ways she had never imagined. The feeling was exhilarating, danger present, yet trust and connection stronger than fear. She realized that humans derived strength not from isolation, dominance, or rigid hierarchy, but from shared purpose and mutual support. Hours passed, and the storm began to abate. The outpost had sustained minor damage, but nothing catastrophic. Human teams worked seamlessly to repair, reassure, and restore. Selira stood at the center of the courtyard, drenched and exhausted, yet a strange warmth filled her chest. She looked at Marcus, who was coordinating the final repairs with calm authority. "You see," he said quietly, "we face danger, and yet we do not succumb to it. We use cooperation, innovation, and trust to overcome it. Pleasure is not only in celebration, but also in mastery of challenge, in the joy of working together to survive and thrive." Selira absorbed his words. She thought of her people, their reliance on fear, their emphasis on strength above all else. Humans were not weak. They were something else entirely: resilient, ingenious, compassionate, and capable of turning even disaster into an opportunity for connection and growth. Later, as the sun broke through the dissipating clouds, Marcus invited Selira to a quiet garden within the outpost. The rain had left leaves glistening, flowers vivid and vibrant. Birds, small but resilient, emerged from shelter and sang their melodies. Humans moved through the garden, tending plants, observing nature, and quietly enjoying the moment. "Humans take pleasure in the simple, ordinary things," Marcus said. "We celebrate life not only in grand achievements but in small acts of care and observation." Selira knelt by a flower, its petals soft against her gloved fingers. She felt a gentle joy, a sensation of calm and fulfillment she had never experienced in her rigorous life as an Ilarian. It was a pleasure not born of indulgence, but of awareness, presence, and connection. "You are beginning to understand," Marcus said. "Strength is not only in force or speed. True strength lies in resilience, trust, and the ability to create moments of joy even in adversity." Selira nodded slowly. She reflected on the past days, the initial fear, the unexpected hospitality, the lessons of calm and pleasure, and the demonstration of human strength during the storm. Each experience had reshaped her understanding of life, challenge, and connection. As evening fell, humans gathered for a communal meal in the courtyard. There was laughter, conversation, and music, a celebration of survival, cooperation, and shared experience. Selira sat among them, still cautious but increasingly at ease. She realized that the pleasure humans offered was not superficial. It was a form of strength, a tool for unity, and a way to inspire courage. Marcus joined her quietly, sitting beside her as they watched the others. "You see," he said softly, "humans do not rely solely on fear to protect themselves or to lead. We rely on understanding, trust, and shared purpose. Pleasure, joy, and connection are not weaknesses. They are sources of resilience and strength." Selira felt a profound shift within her. The fear she had carried for humans, expectation of death and betrayal, had been replaced with a deep respect and admiration. She realized that humans could inspire loyalty, courage, and joy in ways her people often dismissed as trivial. She looked at Marcus, at the calm and confident human who had guided her through this new world. She understood now that the human's greatest gift was not violence or cunning, but the ability to turn expectation of danger into opportunity for understanding, joy, and mutual strength. The night deepened, and Selira found herself alone on the observation balcony once more. She gazed at the stars, the twin moons casting silver light over the outpost. She reflected on the journey so far, the initial fear, the unexpected hospitality, the lessons of collaboration, and the experience of shared pleasure. Each step had revealed a truth her people could not grasp. Humans were not to be feared for their capacity for harm, but revered for their ability to transform fear into connection and joy. A gentle voice broke her thoughts. "You have learned much, Lady Selira," Marcus said, standing beside her. "But the final lesson is simple. Strength and pleasure are not opposites. They complement one another. A species that can survive and thrive and still find joy in existence possesses a power beyond mere force." Selira nodded, her chest swelling with a quiet understanding. She realized that her mission, initially designed to assess humans for potential threat, had become something entirely different. She was no longer simply observing. She was learning, growing, and being changed by her experience. "Perhaps," she said softly, "this is the greatest strength of all." Marcus smiled. "Indeed, and it is one that your people might one day understand as well." The night passed with quiet reflection. Selira knew that she would soon return to her own people to report her findings. She wondered how they would receive the truth. Would they see it as weakness, or would they recognize the profound lesson she had witnessed? But for now, in this moment, she allowed herself to experience the joy, the calm, and the deep sense of connection humans offered. She had come expecting death, yet she had been given pleasure, understanding, and a new perspective on life. And in that realization, she found something she had never imagined possible: hope. Hope for her people, hope for herself, and hope that perhaps, in learning from humans, the universe might become a little wiser, a little kinder, and a little more capable of understanding its own potential. As the twin moons traced their paths across the sky, Selira made a silent vow. She would carry this lesson forward. She would show her people that pleasure, joy, and connection were not weaknesses to fear, but strengths to embrace. And perhaps, one day, Alarians and humans could meet not in suspicion or dread, but in understanding, respect, and shared experience. And in that thought, Selira smiled for the first time in days, not a smile of caution, but one of genuine, heartfelt pleasure. For she had discovered a truth that transcended fear, danger, and expectation. The human way, though unexpected, was a gift, and in that gift lay the power to inspire, to connect, and to transform. She turned to Marcus, who stood quietly beside her. "Thank you," she said simply. "For what?" he asked, curiosity in his eyes. "For showing me that life can be stronger, richer, and more meaningful than I ever imagined," she replied. Marcus's smile was gentle. "That is what it means to be human." And as the night deepened, Lady Selira felt a final, profound sense of understanding. She had expected death, danger, and hostility. Instead, she had received pleasure, insight, and a glimpse into a strength far greater than brute force. It was a strength of heart, mind, and spirit, an enduring lesson that would stay with her forever. And with that, she finally allowed herself to rest, content in the knowledge that the humans had changed not only her perception of them, but her perception of life itself. Expecting death from the human, she was given pleasure instead.